Hey guys, Budcat7 here. Okay, it is Friday, November 22nd, 2019, and I want to thank you for visiting the Stonewall Research channel here on YouTube. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. Alright, gang, well, we're going to continue looking at the quote unquote giants, or large hominids, as I like to call them, state by state, and we're going to cover Ohio now. Now, Ohio has many accounts, as you would imagine. If you know anything about Ohio archaeology, this is a place where many of the Adena and Hopewell earthworks and mounds and many other things have been found. And if you know about it, you know about the Newark, Ohio earthworks. Okay, so here's some pictures of it. This sort of lunar observatory, and just unbelievable. And it's just a testament to how advanced these people really were. And also, the Serpent Mound is found in Ohio. So, maybe you didn't know, this is a picture of what they call the serpent simulacra on the cliff below the Serpent Mound. So there's this people out there looking around who see these things, and often these things are very, subtle. Is the only way I can put it. Is you have to have a sort of eye for it. Even looking at the stone walls. Okay, since I posted all my videos and pictures and everything about the eye in the wall in the walls of New England and New York, okay, and my hypothesis about that and everything. There's a lot of conversation going on about it in the ranks of the people who look at these things on Facebook, et cetera, et cetera. So there's people talk about these things constantly. All the effigies found, effigy rock constructions, stone constructions everywhere in upstate, and all kinds of chambers and mounds and effigies and earthworks and all sorts of things. These people are just constantly posting pictures. It's just amazing. And, look, here's some people who found this simulacra below the Serpent Mound, if you didn't know. It's very interesting when you see these things. And, the native people certainly were people who take advantage of their natural surroundings as elements, in places where they had natural formations that look like mounds, drumlins, etc., they utilized those things. In the areas where those things weren't evident, they created the mounds. You see, so that's one of the reasons for it as well. So you need this artificial construction in this relatively flat area, whatever. It's because you're not utilizing the natural elements, and that was part of the native people's culture and their ancestors too, especially these people in Ohio, who they consider the mound builders to be the Adena and Hopewell. But if you look at anything on this, um, like in the historical societies or Wikipedia pages, no mention of the skeletal remains, which were found, much skeletal remains, but no discussion about it at all on any sort of official websites or anything like that, because it's embarrassing to them. And again, it's almost a lie by omission, because they don't want to discuss. You see, because large people in the past is a difficult thing for them to explain, going by mainstream's current science on the nature of height and growth of the human race, etc. They have all these theories, and because they don't know for sure, it's all theoretical. But there's some things that are sticky points for them that are unexplainable, and they have no way of explaining it. But if they were to go by all current accepted archaeology and anthropology, okay? If they were more in tune with this just accepting it. It's not like it's a secret or anything like that. There's obvious cases from the Smithsonian. They know all about it. If you go to a college course and you took a course on American history, you would go over all of this stuff in detail. You would know they were large scale. You know they had vaulted craniums. You know all these things, but to the general public, they can't put this out there. And of course, those people are indoctrinated there to believe a certain thing or deny certain things or to admit certain questions. Okay? But before I even get to Ohio here, let's just from Florida, there are just two things worth mentioning as far as I'm concerned. And one was they mentioned in the article from this Greatest Ancestors website about giant archers. And what he was referring to was Cabeza de Vaca, head of Cowman, the treasurer from the Narvaez expedition. And he was mentioned in C.W. Saran's book because, in Saran's opinion, this guy was a hero, okay? Because he was more or less a whistleblower on the conquistadors. He went back to Spain and he told all the authorities there what they were doing, is barbarity of what they were doing, savagery or whatever. And they sort of shrugged their shoulders and said, so what? Whatever to the guy. And it just, but he was brave enough to go back. Of course, they called him a liar and all that kind of stuff. So in Saran's opinion, he was a very, very smart and well-noted writer and on archaeology in particular. Okay, his opinion that this guy was a hero. Okay, so I'm reading from this in my video, Jefferson in the Mounds. As I said, this is worth noting from the Florida, this giant state by state. The first Indians he had encountered on a Florida expedition were dangerous warriors, tall, strong, agile, and armed with enormous bows. He reports that one of their arrows penetrated 9 inches into a trunk of a tree near him. But then he met tribes of small stature possessing only primitive weapons, actually Stone Age men. What astonished him most was the multiplicity of their languages. Tribes that lived close together could communicate with one another only by sign language, but in his truthful fashion, he remarks concerning these people, if they were not large, our fears made giants of them, ! End of quote. So here's Saran. So that was the quote. And, Saran said in Cabeza de Vaca's truthful fashion, okay? And what a rational thing to say for somebody to say. If they weren't large, our fears made giants of them. Okay, so you couldn't ask for a more rational explanation of what he saw. And one of the arrows went 9 inches into a tree, and they found massive arrowheads and spearheads. We'll get to it. And also from Florida, too, the Windover Bog people, okay, was mentioned in the article because it's from Florida, okay? And this was in 1982 while they were doing some excavations, I guess, for something that was going to get built. So, in any case, I did this video on it because the Science Channel had some special on it, and they were talking about how the Florida State University had the DNA sent out to a private laboratory. A private laboratory could care less about where it comes from. They're just going to analyze it, okay? No, nothing. They walk in the door, hi, we got some DNA for you. That's it? Okay, good. Give it to me. I'm going to look at it. So he found that when he looked at the DNA, he said it looked European to him. Okay, these people from 7,000 years ago. And there was some odd artifacts found with it, whatever. But I got into this. The guy said, well, there's this woman doctor from Florida State U that wrote a book and did the DNA, and she said it was Native American. I said, oh yeah, because I already knew about this lecture here, this convention or whatever it is they're having here, the panel. With this is the head. This lady is the head of the anthropological department and historical department of Florida State University, and this lady sitting next to her is the lady he was talking about, Rachel Wentz. Okay, Dr. Rachel Wentz, okay, the archaeologist that was on there, whatever, supposedly that she did this, wrote all these books and said it's Native American. Here they are in 2015. I said, oh yeah? Well, I said, what are they doing here on this panel here, discussing how they're going to hire somebody, a DNA specialist from Stanford University, to give it the A-OK. So it's just a blatant example of them denying the results of the DNA because it's not politically correct, doesn't fit into the story, and they're going to hire some lady from Stanford. This was in 2015. Okay, I haven't heard anything about it since. The lady probably never took it because if somebody else examines the DNA, somebody with bigger credentials or whatever, and says, oh, well, what are you talking about? This is European DNA. Is going to be a big thing, it's going to hurt her reputation or whatever. So I guess they have to think about these things or whatever before they get into it, because this, like as I said, they sent the DNA out to a private laboratory. What do they care what it is? They're just there to look at it, okay? But they didn't like the results, you see, because that can't possibly be. That Europeans would be here 7,000 years ago, okay? In the Americas. Can't be. Okay, these 180 something people in the bog over there at Windover Bog, okay, who are slightly taller, not exactly giant category 5'9", but that was substantially larger than the average Europeans of the time. This is how the PSYOP goes. They say it's not of unusual size, and everybody says, oh yeah, well, it's not really, because, we got basketball players, but that's not what we're talking about. It's not a scientific comparison. If you compare people from the past, you have to compare people with the past with other people from the past. You can't compare people to that. It's a different comparison. Okay? That's all. Okay? It's not a true scientific comparison. So you have to put it on the average height at the time that these people existed. Okay? So anyway, they were only 5'9" to 6 foot or something like that, but that is substantially larger at a time where that's like the average height today. 5'9", 5'8", 5'9", 5'7". I've heard all those things, but that's average height today, and the 7-footers are a tiny percentage of the population. So anyway, I said to this guy, well, what are they doing on this panel trying to hire a lady from Stanford to do the DNA? If it's all settled, and this lady wrote a book about it, they're saying they got to hire somebody to settle the DNA evidence, okay? This is just almost like 40 years later. This lady wrote this book on DNA like 20 years ago, okay? So it's part of her, master's thesis or whatever, so it's just a blatant in-your-face, hey, for politically correct reasons, we're just going to hire somebody who's going to put their stamp of approval on it, and we don't have to go any further with it anymore and worry about European DNA and all this, because it's just going to suggest a whole different story of the past, folks, one that they don't know anything about. And it's all going to make them look very stupid if the truth comes out, so even when the truth does pop its ugly head up, see, they're interested in, they're not interested in the ugly truth. They're interested in beautiful lies, okay? Because they're beautiful, you see, not the ugly truth. That's a wet blanket. That's, it's going to open up a can of worms. So it's a whole different picture of the past, folks. People have been coming to the Americas for a long, long time, and, if you think about it, we have what they call trade zones here in the United States. It's probably all Western countries do. Okay, your local airport, your local shipping facility, ports and docks and all that kind of stuff. The wharf people there working at the unloading cargo, and these what they call these trade zones. Okay, you have to have special clearance to go into these trade zones, and generally in these trade zones there are foreign people who are working in these trade zones. People who are non-native peoples. Working in these trade zones from foreign countries. They're foreign nationals working in these trade zones. Okay, they're there for commerce reasons. Okay, but you have to think about it. When they say you find all these people in America, it could be Venetians and Vikings and Uncle Joe and whoever the heck it was. I'm just saying, look, it is, if you got heavy trade going on for years and 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 years, you might want some representatives there over there already for you. Okay, getting stuff prepared. Okay, and it seems to me, because of now what we know about the Americas from Charles C. Mann's book, 1491, that we know that this place was a place for people to come. Okay, and because people were not expert agriculturists, they say that the Hopewell and the Adena were experts at agriculture. So I've heard contrary things, that they didn't know anything about it. So because these were, Stone Age people, these were the Paleo Indians, the Woodland period. These are prior to what they call the Native American Indians. So what happened to these people? What about the transition? We never hear anything about it. All right, so let's talk about Ohio. It's just got a million accounts here, folks. I just pick out certain ones because I thought they were interesting, and that's it. But if you look at Ohio, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. There's almost 100 accounts there. So I just picked out some. I might have to do a two-parter. That's all. It's just, you would expect it there. Like I said, this is where you find these great earthworks, etc. So this first one on Greater Answers, the Ohio postcard partial skeleton, 7 feet. And it seems that the moderator went out there looking for this thing or whatever, or somebody did, reported, to this site. 9th September, the next morning, we drove to the Serpent Mound after an awesome breakfast cooked up by Roy. So what's interesting to me, it's by the Serpent Mound. So who built the Serpent Mound? Was it the Native Americans, their ancestors, the Adena, the Hopewell? They don't know, but you're digging up giant skeletons over there, but, it wasn't by the Smithsonian or Columbia or whatever, so it doesn't count. We aimed to get there this particular day because local residents were displaying artifacts discovered on their land. We drove up the track to Serpent Mound, and I was immediately drawn to a particular mound that was 5 foot high and 15 foot wide. I went to douse it and found 3 energy currents meeting at its apex. I later found out that a giant skeleton had been unearthed from the mound that was rediscovered and printed on an old postcard with a note saying it was 7 foot tall. However, the skeleton had its shins and feet missing, so it could easily have been 8 foot. This was yet another stunning piece of evidence that the giants were here in Ohio. Okay, so the reason why I put this in is because is the Serpent Mound, the Serpent Mound. So who built it? That's a big question there when you got giant skeletons being dug up near it. Old Glades County, giant skeletons, finds giant skeleton, St. Mary's, Ohio, August 27th. The skeleton remains of a giant human were excavated by a dredge near Lake St. Mary's East Bank. The weight of the thigh bone is such that professional evidence was necessary to establish its human origin. So I guess they're saying, just to make no mistake, it was professionally examined to determine to be human. But what says the rest in this article here, this other article, I guess, is more interesting to me. Cornelius Jones, well-known and wealthy landowner of Spencerville, Allen County, in the city, on business said, by the way, there was a remarkable discovery of prehistoric remains in our section the other day. The instance came under my own observation. Last week I had occasion to visit a farm of J. Henley about 2 miles west of Kossuth, just across the border in Auglaize County. Some workmen were engaged in digging a well and had descended to a depth of 32 feet when they struck a gravel drift, from which they exhumed a gigantic skull 38 inches in circumference. That's huge, guys. Huge, absolutely. Further down, other bones of the giant were found. There can be no doubt as to the kind of remains. The thigh bone measured 3 feet 2 inches in length, and the spinal column is 4 feet 2 inches long. All the bones were in an excellent state of preservation and were probably those of a prehistoric warrior who was killed in battle, as the skulls seemed to have been crushed with a blunt instrument, these war hammers that the Native American Indians were using. But can you imagine what the large hominids were using? The whole skeleton measured 8 feet 11 and a half inches in height, and when clothed with flesh, must have been tremendously powerful man. A huge stone axe weighing 27 pounds and a flint spearhead of 17 pounds weight were found with the bones, and were no doubt waved by the giant with the greatest ease. Hard to read that there. A copper medallion engraved with several strange characters was also found with the bones, suggesting the Adena. This startling discovery proves the biblical assertion that there were giants in those days. The scientific value of the discovery is also great and may lead to some interesting developments. So, you got an axe weighing 27 pounds and the spearhead of 17 pounds. Okay, and let me try to go through this quick. Like I said, guys, I'm gonna have to do this. Will have to be a part one. And I'll do a part two, but just to look at things. Okay, what's an axe? Okay, you know what a hatchet is? That's like a handheld axe, right? So like the size of a hammer. Okay, the beauty of an axe is if it's light. You understand? It can't be heavy because the nature of the swinging that you're going to be doing with it. You see? Like this axe, this Ranger axe with a 36-inch handle. It's 4 pounds, okay? With a special kind of steel that's super, super hard because you don't want to have to keep on sharpening this thing a lot. You want it to stay sharp a lot. But the beauty of an axe is that it's light, you see? What's with a sledgehammer, okay, the heaviest sledgehammers, this is like a 22-pound one, okay? You got to be a mighty, mighty man to swing around a 22-pound sledge, okay? That's all I got to say. I've swung a few sledgehammers in my day, okay? They range in weight, all sorts of weight, okay? That's a mighty big one, 22 pounds, okay? So the action of swinging a hammer is different. See, gravity is in charge when you do that. Okay, so it can be heavier. And that's why maul axes are heavier, because of the action of splitting logs. It's a downward motion, and gravity force is involved with it. So you want your chopping axe, okay, to be light, but your maul can be a little bit heavier, and your sledgehammer can be very heavy, but it's because of the action you're doing with it, hammering things, okay? When you're cutting things with an axe, it can't be that heavy. So I'm just showing you the differences of the biomechanical reasons and how this works, okay? The reasons for tools to be developed as such, all right? So in any case, this spearhead was 17 pounds. Okay, so you're swinging an axe that weighs 27 pounds. Okay, axe needs to be light. Okay, if it was light to them, okay, then they got to be tremendous size.